Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most shocking developments in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, a massive explosion that has once again rocked the Crimea Bridge. This bridge, often referred to as Putin's Pride, has stood as a critical link between mainland Russia and the occupied Crimean Peninsula. But last night, it was shaken by a blast so powerful that it could be heard for miles, setting off alarms across the region and sending shockwaves through Moscow's political and military circles. What exactly happened? Who was behind it? And what does this mean for the war going forward? Let's break it all down in detail. The explosion struck in the dead of night, just as traffic was light and the skies were quiet. Witnesses describe a sudden flash of light followed by a thunderous roar. Moments later, flames erupted and thick black smoke covered the sky above the Kerch Strait. Videos flooded social media almost instantly, showing massive sections of the bridge engulfed in fire. The visuals were horrifying: vehicles destroyed, debris falling into the water, and emergency teams rushing to the scene. Russia quickly shut down the bridge and imposed an information blackout, but the images were already spreading worldwide. The Crimea Bridge, also known as the Kerch Bridge, has been one of the most strategically significant targets since the beginning of this war. It's not just a road and rail link, it's a symbol of Russian control over Crimea. Built at great cost and opened in 2018, Putin himself drove across it in celebration, presenting it as proof that Crimea was firmly under Russian authority. But now, with another explosion tearing through its structure, that message of strength is crumbling. For Ukrainians, this was more than just an attack on infrastructure, it was a direct hit to the heart of Russian prestige. Initial reports from Russian officials tried to downplay the situation. They claimed the explosion was caused by a fuel truck accident. However, satellite images and independent footage suggested something far more serious. The precision of the damage, especially on key spans of the bridge, points to a deliberate strike. Experts believe it could have been a coordinated operation using long-range drones, naval drones, or even sabotage from within the region. The blast was so powerful that parts of the roadway collapsed into the water, making immediate repair impossible. Ukraine has not officially taken responsibility, but government sources hinted that this was a carefully planned operation. Several Ukrainian officials posted cryptic messages on social media soon after the explosion, suggesting that the night was long for the occupiers. It's a style Ukraine has used before, not outright claiming attacks, but leaving little doubt about who was behind them. The symbolism couldn't be clearer. Hitting Putin's most prized structure during wartime sends a message that no Russian stronghold is beyond reach. For Russia, this incident is another major embarrassment. After previous strikes on the same bridge, Russian forces had increased surveillance and tightened security, installing radar systems and even underwater defense measures. Yet somehow, attackers managed to find and exploit a weakness. The timing also makes it worse, coming at a moment when Russia is already struggling to maintain momentum on multiple fronts. Soldiers at the front lines are short on supplies, and this bridge was a key route for transporting ammunition, fuel, and reinforcements to Crimea and southern Ukraine. The Kremlin's reaction was swift and furious. Putin convened an emergency meeting with his top generals, vowing retaliation. Russian state media called the attack a terrorist act and accused Ukraine of trying to destroy critical civilian infrastructure. Meanwhile, reports emerged of missile strikes launched across Ukrainian cities shortly after the bridge blast, likely a direct response from Moscow. But many analysts argue that these retaliations are signs of desperation rather than control. Each successful Ukrainian strike chips away at Russia's image of dominance. What makes this explosion particularly significant is the message it sends to both the Russian public and the international community. Inside Russia, propaganda has long painted the war as distant, something that happens elsewhere. But when a symbol like the Crimea Bridge goes up in flames, it becomes impossible to ignore. For the Russian people, it's a reminder that the war's consequences are reaching closer to home. For the world, it highlights Ukraine's growing capabilities, showing how far its intelligence and precision weapon systems have evolved since the early days of the invasion. Western intelligence officials have suggested that the explosion could mark a turning point. The attack showcases Ukraine's strategic focus on crippling Russian logistics rather than engaging in direct, costly battles. By targeting supply lines, fuel depots, and transport infrastructure, Ukraine aims to weaken Russia from within, forcing its military to operate under constant pressure. The destruction of the bridge creates a bottleneck for Russian forces trying to move between mainland Russia and the southern battlefronts, including occupied territories like Kherson and Zaporizhia. Eyewitness accounts from Crimea paint a scene of panic and confusion. People living near the bridge described hearing 2 or 3 consecutive blasts, followed by an orange glow lighting up the night sky. For hours, emergency crews battled the flames as explosions continued in the distance. Russian rescue teams tried to downplay casualties, but unconfirmed reports suggest that several military trucks and vehicles were destroyed, and multiple personnel were injured or missing. Civilian traffic was halted completely, leaving many stranded on both sides of the bridge. In the hours following the explosion, social media became a battlefield of its own. Ukrainian pages flooded with celebratory memes, while Russian channels scrambled to control the narrative. The Kremlin's media tried to spin the event as minor damage, but satellite images released later told a different story. The destruction was extensive, multiple spans collapsed, rail tracks twisted, and fire damage visible across a wide area. International media outlets began broadcasting the footage, calling it one of the most significant blows to Russian infrastructure since the war began. Global reactions were quick and divided. Western leaders praised Ukraine's resilience and strategic capability, emphasizing their right to defend themselves. NATO officials reiterated their support, saying that such strikes are a natural consequence of Russia's continued occupation. On the other hand, China and several neutral countries expressed concern, warning that the escalation could bring the conflict closer to a dangerous tipping point. The UN called for restraint, but the momentum of events made it clear that the war was entering yet another unpredictable phase. In Ukraine, morale soared. Citizens viewed the explosion as a symbol of resistance, proof that Russia's dominance could be challenged. Across Kiev, people celebrated quietly but proudly, knowing that each successful strike brings them closer to reclaiming their territory. The emotional power of such an attack cannot be underestimated. It's not just about infrastructure, it's about hope, about showing that even after years of war, Ukraine still has the strength to fight back. For Russia, the psychological blow might be even more damaging than the physical destruction. Putin has invested enormous political capital into the Crimea Bridge. It's been featured in countless propaganda videos as a symbol of unity and strength. To see it burning again undermines that image completely. It exposes vulnerabilities that Russia has long tried to hide. Even if the bridge is repaired, the symbolism of its repeated destruction will linger. Every rebuilt section will stand as a reminder of Ukraine's defiance. Military experts suggest that this latest blast could force Russia to reroute supplies through longer, less secure paths across occupied southern territories. This will not only slow down logistics, but also make convoys more vulnerable to further Ukrainian strikes. It's a strategy that squeezes Russia's operational capacity while boosting Ukraine's leverage on the battlefield. In essence, this one explosion may have disrupted months of Russian planning and logistics. Meanwhile, inside Moscow, political pressure is mounting. Critics are questioning how such a critical asset could be attacked again despite heavy defenses. Some are pointing fingers at intelligence failures within Russia's security apparatus. Others whisper about internal sabotage, a possibility that can't be ruled out given the growing discontent among Russian elites. For Putin, every unanswered question deepens the cracks in his authority. This explosion also has far-reaching implications for international diplomacy. Countries that have been hesitant to support Ukraine militarily might now see this as proof of Ukraine's tactical sophistication and determination. It could influence future weapons supplies and intelligence sharing agreements, strengthening Ukraine's hand in the long run. On the flip side, Russia is likely to double down on its rhetoric, framing itself as a victim of Western aggression to rally domestic support. In the days ahead, the world will be watching how Russia responds. Another wave of missile strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure seems likely, as seen in past cycles of retaliation. But whether those strikes will change the course of the war remains doubtful. What's clear is that the Crimea Bridge blast has once again shifted the psychological balance of this conflict. It shows that Ukraine retains the initiative, capable of striking deep behind enemy lines despite Russia's defenses. As the dust settles, experts are already debating how long it will take Russia to repair the bridge. Engineers warn that the damage is far worse than official statements suggest. Even partial restoration could take months, and full reconstruction might take years. Every day the bridge remains out of service is another day that Russian logistics suffer, another day that Ukraine holds the upper hand in this shadow war of endurance and precision. In conclusion, the massive blast that rocked the Crimea Bridge is not just another incident in a long war. It's a statement, a reminder that in modern warfare, symbols matter as much as territory. For Ukraine, this is a triumph of courage, intelligence, and strategy. For Russia, it's a humiliation that exposes deep cracks in both its military and its political structure. The world is watching as the conflict enters a new chapter, one defined not by grand offensives but by targeted strikes that shake the very foundation of power. And so, as the smoke still lingers over the Kerch Strait and the ruins of the bridge stand as a charred monument to defiance, one thing is clear: the war is far from over. Each explosion, each strike, and each act of resilience adds to the story of a nation fighting for its freedom. The Crimea Bridge may rise again, but its destruction tonight will be remembered as another turning point, a moment when the world saw that even the mightiest symbols of control can fall in the face of determination.